The Bretons of High Rock are sometimes called the Manmer, the half-elves. They are the result of centuries of mixing blood between the Reni and the Druids. Racially though, they are a cross between Aldmer and Needs. As we know, the race of the mother dictates the race of the offspring. While the qualities of the father are also passed on, his racial physiology is discarded. And while the Durrani were taking concubines, the children were racially all men with some elven characteristics. The half-bloods were not allowed to mix into Durrani families, and so the elven traits got further diluted in human offspring. And while the Bretons are all in fact a race of men, their elven ancestry makes them distinct from other human races. At a glance, one may not even notice anything out of the ordinary, but pay enough attention and one can observe pointed ears, narrow chins, large angled eyes, brow ridges, narrower posture, more delicate features than most. Any and all of these qualities can be found in Bretons. On the inside, however, the Bretons are quite unique. The elven blood manifests by granting them larger pools of magicka than most, but the resilient man heritage makes them tough and durable. Their Aldmer sire's weakness to magic did not pass on to them. Instead, they grew resistant to it, allowing them to shrug off hostile spells, or even absorb them, and use their magicka to cast spells of their own. They are perhaps the most versatile of all races of Tamriel, equally gifted in all fields of combat, magicka and stealth. They use all types of armor and weapons, same with magicka, but they are truly shine in conjuration and alchemy, just as did the Durrani. When it comes to internal unity, High Rock is probably the most fractured one. Sure, the Dunmer have their great houses, constantly trying to undermine each other, Argonians their tribes, each with different philosophy, or the Jarls of Skyrim, independent of one another. But High Rock has the main kingdoms of Daggerfall, Camlorn, Shornhelm, Faerun, Wayrest, Northpoint and Evermore, and within them multitude of smaller baronies, duchies and states. All the Breton nobles are one way or another involved in some plot or conspiracy, as many of them seek to expand their wealth, status or power. Many would view them as greedy or power-hungry, but this is simply how things are in High Rock. If you are not conspiring, then somebody conspires against you. Actually, these two are not exclusive, usually both apply. As such, poisonings, assassinations, disappearances and other accidents while hunting are common. The result of that is the frequent changes of ownership of castles, manors, orchards and farmlands. This leaves a lot of vacancies in the lower nobles, but the Breton society has solution to it. They know that money and bloodline do not make a noble, they also require renown, and with renown, the other two can also be acquired. This means that many Bretons of all ages roam the lands as adventurers, seeking beasts to slay, peasants to rescue, and quests to fulfill. With the reputation, they can begin the climb of the social ladder. Even after becoming known throughout the land, many still continue the vagrant lifestyle, eventually joining the ranks of an order of knights which are very prominent in High Rock. One thing, the concept of nature magic or druidism is wholly accredited to the early Bretons. It is a form of practice of the arcane which allows to control the land itself, or more commonly exert power over the plant and animals. It can be used to summon the ever-present swarms of insects, to distract an opponent, direct mighty vines to entangle them, or call for help in shape of a ferocious beast. All these sound as if the early Bretons have learned these skills from the Spriggans, the spirits of the wild. Originally, the early Bretons lived in alignment with Jeffre's domain, but as more and more Aldmeri culture seeped in, culture focused on dominating the natural world, a great split happened. The Bretons were split by their conflicting philosophy. One group, quite extremist in their view but peaceful, became the Word. They are perhaps the closest in lifestyle to original Needs, who lived in High Rock before arrival of the elves. They and the Druids were one and the same until the Durenni unknowingly drove a wedge between them. Now the Word are woman-only gatherings of naturalists living in the wild and recluse. While peaceful, they tolerate visitors within reason, but they fiercely defend their homes and resist being civilized. Their disdain for advancement comes from their religion and philosophy. They revere Jeffra, although they only call it that since the arrival of the Durenni, as he is, after all, an elven god. Before, they simply worship nature, the wilds, meadows, forests, untamed creatures, and the weather. They believe to be part of the world so strongly that they wish not to disturb or harm it. As such, they live in a simple hunter-gatherer societies, using simple tools and magic to get by. They are quite similar to Bosmer, the wood elves of Valenwood, but are not restricted to strictly carnivorous diet. Being descendants of the wandering Elnofey, they have no pact with Jeffra, I suppose. Another thing they lack in comparison to elven counterparts is the magic which allows Bosmer to shape trees into abodes. Therefore they construct stone round huts with thatched roofs. In their isolation, the Word are nurturing the spirits of the wild and protecting their fiefdom. As such, they often have rather unclear relationship with lurchers, spriggans, nereids, and other spirits of the wild. The Word, being so distant from the wider world, are spread across all of the High Rock. As such, they are not united people, while undivided in their faith, they are still separated by distance. Therefore, they divide themselves into covens. The two largest are the Beldama and the Glenmoril Words. They exist an unknown number of smaller covens hidden in the distant groves. The Beldama Word is found in Glenumbra, where they congregate around Word Tree, an oak which has grown to a massive size. The Glenmoril Word is rather decentralized and exists as small pockets spread across High Rock and the other provinces. Their most defining trait is their worship of Hircine. As I mentioned already, all covens praises and reverse nature, but the Glenmoril also venerate the god of the hunt. By the way, they are not the only ones. Many smaller covens have Daedra followers among their midst, such as the Hagfeather Coven, who have strong ties to Namira, or the Fen Witches, who follow Molag Bal. Considering their religious affiliation to the Daedra, it is no surprise that many covens have also close ties with the Reachman clans. While on their own they are culturally separate societies, some willingly coexist and help each other. Quite often, they both encourage each other in their faith, pushing the boundaries further, and sometimes the Wiresses can forfeit themselves and become hagravens. While the Word covens are in majority Bretons, all races can join their ranks. Since we have already brushed off of the topic of Reachmen, let's discuss them in closer detail. Their subject is quite vast and deserving a discussion on its own, so let's keep this brief. The Reachmen can trace their origins to the same needs that sired Bretons. Nowadays, they are quite diverse racially, as many of them are of Bretonic or Nordic descent. They lay claim to the Reach, or as they call it, Karth, a region centered on the borders of High Rock, Skyrim and Hammerfell. Living in the steep and craggy Druidak and Dragontail mountains, they are difficult to subjugate and control. As they prize their freedom and independence, they always rebel and fight to rule themselves. They worship Daedra, most importantly Lorcan, Namira and Hircine. As such, they have many lycanthropes living among them, and it also connects them with the Word. The Reachmen are divided into clans, some neutral, other outright hostile to outsiders, but they all help each other and share the goal of country of their own. They live in simple tribal societies, hunting and farming what they can in the poor soil of the Reach. The lack of resources often forces them to banditry. Going back to the Word, their male counterpart are the Druids. The split between them and the Word occurred when the Durrani began to spread across High Rock, and more needs were assimilated into the Durrani lifestyles. The Word were the ones to renounce cities and advancements of elves, declaring them to be a threat to nature and a sacrilege. The Druids, on the other hand, accepted towns, farms, fisheries and vineyards as part of the nature, as all men and ma are part of the natural world, aren't we? However, they demanded respect and protection of the wilderness, and to take only what is needed and not to abuse the land for profit. At first, the Durrani paid little attention to the Druids and the Word, but in time, they began to view them as nuisance, slowing down the development of cities and Durrani's expansion across the land. But they tolerated their presence and actions because they did not want to incite an uprising. However, it was not the case with the Alesian Empire, which at the time was a theocracy and considered the Druids heretics. This would not be a problem for the Druids, as High Rock was not part of Alesian Empire for another few centuries. But the fanatical Alesian Order acted even outside the borders of Cyrodiil and harassed the Druids in their own land. The Durrani did not interfere, as they hoped to keep amicable relation with the Empire. The leader of the Druids, King Casorain, fearing for his subjects, received a vision from Jeffrey. Instructed by his patron, he led nearly all Druids out of High Rock and across the sea to the tiny archipelago of the Sisters Islands. Using their power, they cultivated flora across the barren volcanic islands, turning them from inhospitable, coarse specks of land into tropical and lush island paradise. To this day, their presence is strongest there. As the Druids interact with other cultures a lot more than the Word, their structure and traditions are far more known than that of the Word. As they are divided into covens, the Druids are split into circles. The most notable of them are the Stone Lore, Eldertide and Fire Song. In times of need, the Druids can gather into Droifa, or council, to discuss ongoing matters and decide the best course of action. The Druids are known for their shape-shifting abilities, allowing them to transform into wild animals, wolves, bears, crows and the like. They use this power to deter any willing to exploit the rich natural world around them. The geography of High Rock has made the Bretons capable hunters and sailors. The goods imported from faraway lands allowed them to experiment and with time develop the most varied and palatable cuisine. To be honest, the Breton cuisine is widely considered the most elaborate and delicious. The meal of a commoner can be bubble and squeak, which is just cabbage and potatoes cooked and then fried, or an oxtail soup. For those of nobility, there are plenty to enjoy: smoked albatross eggs, roasted anglerfish, fox tongues, soufflés, and of course no shortage of sausages, fish, steamed crabs or soups. For dessert or as a treat, strawberry tarts, sugar fritters and honey cakes are popular across High Rock. As for drinks, the Bretons enjoy variety, be it alcoholic or not. Bitters is a simple beer, but they also brew sweet brown ale which has acai berries added for flavor. A wine I would recommend is the spicy virus wine, made from cereally, grapes, ginkgo and ginger. Mint tea is common in households after supper.